Well, I'd like to thank Graham Quirk and the Venues Review panel for their work. They've done a good job. I agree with most of what they've found, like that the Gabba demolition isn't good value for money and that the Albion Park complex isn't good value for money either. Cabinet has met today and considered the review. We've agreed to accept 27 of the 30 recommendations made by the panel. Let me assure you of this. Brisbane is going to put on the best ever Olympic and Paralympic Games. But on my first day as Premier, I initiated this review. And I initiated this review because Queenslanders told me that they did not want to spend $2.7 billion knocking down and rebuilding the Gabba. I was hopeful that the review would find a better value option. The promise of hosting the Games under the new norms has always been that we could host the Games in our existing venues. But you will have seen that the panel have recommended a new venue at up to $3.4 billion at Victoria Park. I don't agree with that recommendation. When Queenslanders are struggling with housing and other costs, I cannot justify to them spending $3.4 billion on a new stadium. I ordered this review because I had heard from Queenslanders that $2.7 billion at the Gabba was too much. So I know that for Queenslanders, $3.4 billion at Victoria Park will be too much. So I'm ruling that out. I am supporting the option that was put forward by John Coates in his submission. That proposal gives us 3 upgraded stadiums and the arena, all within the existing funding envelope. I know that I said I'd do what the Quirk review recommended, but I cannot support the option that they have landed on. I cannot support building a brand new stadium while Queenslanders are doing it as tough as I know that they are. This option will allow us to upgrade Suncorp Stadium to a standard to host a fantastic opening and closing ceremony. Suncorp Stadium will become our Olympic Stadium. It's already our busiest venue. It's the home of rugby league, the Broncos and the Dolphins and the mighty Queensland Maroons. Of course, the Roar as well, and it's one of our best concert venues. As you can see, Pink is ready to go on stage here again tonight. I'm biased, but I've always thought it was the best rectangular field in the world, and with this, we can make it even better. There isn't a bad seat, it's well connected to public transport, and of course surrounded by the incredible Caxton Street precinct. For athletics, we will upgrade the Queensland Sport and Athletics Complex to be the nation's best athletics facility. I know the review rejected that option on the basis of the Olympic access costs. The IOC has committed to me that they will work with us to minimise those requirements. We will work with Brisbane City Council to identify public transport options. QSAC is already one of our most used venues, but we will turn it into the best athletics venue in Australia. It hosted nearly 782,000 people in 22-23. It is already a busy venue. We have Cedric with us, who trains there nearly every day, to tell us about what this means for athletics. That means we can also deliver a refurbishment at the Gabba, that iconic home of the AFL and cricket. Now, since we put together the original Games plan, cricket wasn't an Olympic sport. It is now, and we'll be able to play cricket at the Gabba and broadcast those images from here right around the world, and particularly into the subcontinent where we know they are cricket obsessed. This means that cricket and AFL will not be displaced. They will continue to be able to play at the Gabba throughout the entire Games preparation period. Of course, I worked very closely with the DP and Minister Grace on this response. It's been endorsed by our Cabinet today, and we also have some sporting greats here with us to talk about what it means for their codes.
Well, every Queenslander knows the importance of getting value for money. Every Queensland family knows how important it is to get value for every dollar they spend. And that's exactly the approach we've taken to this review of Olympic venues. Frankly, if it doesn't make sense to spend billions of dollars on a new stadium at the Gabba, it doesn't make sense to do the same thing as Victoria Park. That's why we've made the decision to make QSAC our home for athletics. This decision will ensure the Games stays within its funding envelope. As Treasurer, getting value for money is my #1 priority. It will be a cost-effective Games and it will keep faith with the IOC new norms. This decision will give us maximum bang for buck.
Thank you. The report is publicly available, and I want to thank and join the Premier in thanking Graham Kirk, Ken Konofsky and Michelle Morris for their thorough process over the last 60 days. The review, as we know, was commissioned to have a look at the venues, and it really is good that they looked at that affordable delivery, fit for purpose, and obviously creating a legacy for Queensland. The panel received more than 900 submissions and held 130 meetings with a range of stakeholders, including site visits and assessing and studying all of the recommendations and all of the submissions that were being put forward. I want to thank everyone who contributed to the process. The submissions were carefully reviewed by the panel and have been very beneficial in shaping the report and our response to it. The review panel kindly provided me a copy of the report on late Friday afternoon, so it gave the government and cabinet time to put together my submission to cabinet, and they've endorsed what the Premier outlined earlier on. There are 30 recommendations. We're accepting 27, which is 90% of the recommendations, and we want to deliver the best outcome for Queenslanders, and this review is another step in ensuring that we do that in the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. In addition to the announcements made by the Premier regarding the major venues, obviously we're supporting the arena in the Roma Street, upper end of Roma Street Parklands, a new venue. We are not going to build a new stadium at Victoria Park, and I'm delighted to provide updates on the minor venue program. The 3 venue projects in the Sunshine Coast, being the Stadium Indoor Sports Centre, the Mountain Bike Centre, as well as the Chandler Precinct, had complete project validation reports prior to the commencement of the review and have been endorsed by the independent panel, and it means now that we can progress to procurement. We want to, once the documentation is finalised with the Commonwealth Government, we can really start moving on a lot of these minor venues. We will waste no time and look forward to getting on with the job in conjunction with our federal and local government colleagues. The Moreton Bay community is one of the winners, with their new indoor sports centre being investigated for an expansion, and that's at the Mill in Petrie. The Breakfast Creek Indoor Sports Precinct at Albion, as the Premier said, will not proceed, with the panel recommending an indoor sports centre be located, and there's investigation work at Zilmere or the Boondall Entertainment Centre instead. We are investigating and assessing a detailed assessment of those sites, and in consultation we will build those well before 2032, and we're looking at obviously those 2 centres about which is the best one, the Wizards Basketball Centre or the Boondall Entertainment Centre. The proposed upgrades to the Toowoomba Sports Ground will not proceed, but opportunity to host other game events in the region will be explored with the IOC and the Brisbane 2032 Organising Committee. Almost half of the sports venues are outside of Brisbane, providing an economic and jobs boost during construction and beyond. I'm very pleased to see the additional benefits that will be explored through the major venues program, which the Premier has announced. Investing, I think, in the Queensland Sports and Athletics Centre, QSAC, at the old QE2 site will provide an opportunity to explore expanded transport links servicing not only the stadium, but also surrounding Griffith University and the health precinct. And growing communities on the south side of Brisbane will obviously benefit where we provide additional legacy benefits there. The opportunity for enhanced transport links is an important part of legacy of the Olympic Games, and we're looking forward to working with stakeholders on those benefits. Victoria Park is a highly valued community space, and as we said, we don't have any plans at this review that came through to spend 3.4 billion, plus we would have to look at and explore. There's additional work that would have needed about warm-up facilities and those kind of additional spaces. The government will move quickly now onto due diligence. The IOC will make available its games construction experts to advise in respect to the potential upgrade to QSAC, including specifically what are the suggested upgrades in those surrounding areas. And I know that the athletes that are there, Cedric, for example, will be very grateful for those updated facilities. Consequently, he's one of our decathlon hopefuls, and hopefully he'll get a gold medal in 2032. Community benefit is the focus for these venues and that are being delivered in time for the Games, and we're really looking forward to getting on with the job. I'll be implementing, together with Cabinet and the Government, an independent delivery authority. A bill will be introduced soon into the Parliament. That will then be debated, and we should have it established by mid-2024. And the Government plans to introduce this legislation as soon as possible so we can get them all ready to go. We don't want to waste time. Let's get on and build the venues for the legacy that we know Queensland is going to benefit from. Any proposed changes, obviously we'll need to talk with the Commonwealth Government, the IOC, OCOG. They're all important stakeholders. Those discussions will obviously occur, and we're really looking forward to a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bring the Olympic and Paralympic Games here to Queensland in 2032. And once again, thank you to the panel members for their review.
Yeah, good afternoon. Just want to say a little bit about the role that Suncorp Stadium can play on the pathway to achieving the government's and the Premier's vision for the Olympics for 2032. I think we all know that Suncorp Stadium has had a very good chassis and working very hard and closely with Stadiums Queensland over the last 20 years. I think strategically we've been able to ensure that what's under the bonnet and the bodywork that accompanies all that is going to be able to be pulled into shape fairly quickly to make sure that it's going to meet the demands that are going to be expected of it come 2032. There's a whole range of things that have been done over the last 20 years. We've got work ongoing at all times. I think things like enhancements in technology, large LED screens, additional seating, looking at better access and better egress for people are all things that we've got on the agenda. We've had them on the agenda for quite some time. They'll all be rolled up into helping deliver what's needed to make Suncorp Stadium a crowning jewel for the Olympics and reflect the aspirations of the city and the country as far as the Olympic Games are concerned. I don't think I need to talk too much about the standard to which Suncorp Stadium is held within the community. It's great to see people like Wally Lewis and Steven Miles here today lending their support. There's probably no one to talk more candidly and more creditably about what Suncorp Stadium means to the people of Queensland and those people. But we're certainly here working with Stadiums Queensland to make sure that we can play our part and deliver a wonderful games to the city of Brisbane.
Hello, I'm Cedric. I'm a current decathlete. Unfortunately, in 2032, I'll be 37 years of age, so if I tried to continue in my sport, I'd probably be held together by duct tape. So I don't think I'm going to make it that long, unfortunately. But I really like the proposed changes for QSAC. I think ever since I was a young athlete, it was always special to compete at QSAC, a venue that was used for the Commonwealth Games in 1982, and I think that it's been kind of that central piece for track and field in Queensland for many, many years now, at least as long as I've been alive. And I think that improving the stadium a little bit will really help to continue that, to keep that as a central piece for athletics for many more years beyond the 2032 Olympics. I think some of the benefits for athletes are just having a warm-up track right next to the main stadium, just making those sort of little adjustments so that athletes aren't having to travel back and forth between warm-up tracks and on buses and stuff. And you know, from an athlete's perspective, I think the only thing that can be improved at QSAC is just some small upgrades to the stadium to make sure that it's not funneling in the wind, so that we get favourable wind conditions. But apart from that, really looking forward to seeing the upgrades, the suggested upgrades to QSAC, and hopefully having a beautiful stadium for the athletes to compete at in 2032.
The work review said QSAC does not represent value for money and leaves limited legacy benefits. Isn't this just the government focused on its political survival rather than the legacy benefits? Your predecessor touted when we talked about this.
We have heard from Cedric the legacy benefits for athletics at QSAC. This is one of our most used venues, and this is an opportunity for us to support those athletes while also delivering upgrades here at Suncorp Stadium and the Gabba, as well as the new arena. It will also deliver the important legacy of activating the new train stations that we're building for Cross River Rail, Roma Street and the Gabba, as well as that pedestrian connectivity, that active travel connectivity that I've been so passionate about, connecting Suncorp, Roma Street and Wollongabba, effectively extending the South Bank precinct all the way through to Wollongabba and connecting the transport interchange there to the stadium. So this still delivers many of the benefits of previous plans, but it is a plan where we can have more certainty about its costs, where we can utilise our existing facilities and where we don't displace any sports from the Gabba.
Just on that point, the work review notes that if you do upgrade QSAC, athletes that are preparing for games will need replacement facilities. In the meantime, where will they do that?
Well, we'll have to determine how long the upgrade will take, and then look at what options for them for that period is. It's possible that the staging of the warm-up track and the athletics track can still allow for it to be used throughout, but we need to do that work.
I mean, this is a plan you're announcing right now. Sources have told me the government came up with this plan weeks ago and started consulting on it. Is that correct?
Oh, we've been working on this plan in recent weeks. Obviously, we didn't cook it up in the cabinet room. I asked, when it was clear the direction the panel was heading in, I indicated to our public servants that we needed another option. We were aware the panel would consider those two options, and I asked for more detail to be done on an option 2 because I knew that it was going to be very, very hard to accept a brand new $3.4 billion stadium without any of that planning work, effectively starting from scratch.
Are we going to be having a cut price game, the sort of games you have when you want to cancel them if you can't?
Well, I think this is a great value games. It delivers us 3 upgraded stadiums and the new arena. So this is closer to what I was looking for. I indicated when I did the review that there were no perfect solutions, no easy solutions. If there was, we would have found them sooner. But this is an alternative that allows us to stay within our funding envelope, deliver those legacy benefits, particularly around public transport and connectivity, invest in wider public transport projects like Sunshine Coast Direct Rail. So I see this as the best value option.
How much does winning the next election come into these plans?
Oh, this is very much about what is the best plan for the Olympic and Paralympic Games, and I think when you look at it, it is a good value outcome at a time when Queenslanders are struggling with housing costs and other costs. I don't see how I could have justified pouring another $1 billion into the Games funding envelope. I was determined to stay within the existing envelope.
But there's nothing to stop the opposition if they become government to tear this up and start again. I mean, it's just a schmozzle, an international embarrassment, surely.
Well, that will be up to them, and you'll have to ask them their position. This is our position.
But you've just paid a huge amount of money for a report that was largely ignored its main recommendation. And Graham Quirk did say the Gabba will have to eventually be pulled down because it's not fit for purpose and it's old.
Well, I don't see a scenario where a future government demolishes the Gabba after we've invested so much to build the public transport infrastructure there, to deliver the urban renewal there, and to connect it to South Bank and back across the river to the City Botanic Gardens. So I think the Gabba, the iconic Gabba, will always be a stadium. I note that the report didn't calculate what it would cost to demolish the Gabba after building their new stadium at Victoria Park. That would only add to those costs. We are accepting 27 of the 30 recommendations. It is a good report. We don't agree necessarily with the Olympic overlay costs that have been incorporated into the QSAC costing in the document. We will work with the IOC to get that number down, but this is a plan that delivers to Queensland 3 upgraded venues plus the arena plus all of those other community sporting locations. Sorry? We don't anticipate that they are accurate costs. What we do anticipate is that we will be able to allocate more than $500 million from the existing funding envelope to upgrades at the Gabba. I hope that that can deliver us the pedestrian connectivity to Cross River Rail that is just so important, as well as upgraded facilities for players and spectators. That's a good outcome there at the Gabba, but it won't be hosting the opening ceremony as was the original plan. We will do that here at Suncorp.
The issues with the Gabba was that the compensation had to go there. What kind of disruptions do you anticipate for Dolphins, Broncos, the War, and major events that are played in Suncorp in the lead up to the games?
Again, that's the benefit of doing these smaller upgrade projects, is that we don't anticipate that they will dislocate any sports for significant periods of time. The kinds of upgrades that Alan spoke to can be delivered while continuing to have the stadium active.
The infrastructure spend, that the recommendations would fit within the $7 billion infrastructure spend. Are you expecting to make savings with the changes you're making?
You could not build the $3.4 billion Victoria Park Stadium within the current envelope. It would put you well above the current envelope, at least $700 million above the current envelope, without accounting for transport connectivity. So one of the things a lot of people don't know is that the exhibition station won't be able to be open during the Olympics, so that you need to identify how to rapidly move 50,000+ people in and out of Victoria Park. That won't be cheap either. So, so the costing that's included in the review report today includes the costs associated with a transport solution. We want to interrogate that, but that is included in the $1.6 billion figure used by the reviewers. Sorry? It's likely to be a rapid bus interchange, but I want to work with City Council to see if there's a way, for example, for it to integrate into their metro system.
Question on the cost of the Gabba. How much are you spending in the Gabba?
Sorry?
How much are you going to spend redeveloping the Gabba?
We'll need to identify exactly what the QSAC upgrade costs and how much of that $1 billion we need to spend. But even if it is that total amount, that would still leave in the order of $1 billion to spend between Suncorp and the Gabba, roughly half-half.
You talked about the Gabba upgrades. Will that make it disability compliant?
It will improve the disability access. There isn't an option that delivers full accessibility, full disability access other than the full demolition. But we will work with disability advocacy groups as well as the hirers and stadium management to identify the maximum amount of accessibility that can be delivered. So that would continue to see Queensland contribute more than their 50% share to that intergovernmental agreement, but we need to negotiate those details with the Australian government. I hope that they will leave their 50% share on the table, given we remain committed to an entire funding envelope.
Premier, just on the costing, you're saying it's about $2 billion for this renewed upgrade. You're saying $1 billion for QSAC, $1 billion left over for Suncorp and Gabba.
We will need to work through the details of what you get, particularly at Gabba and Suncorp, once we know how much of that total QSAC cost will need to be spent. The panel, though, has estimated that will be $1.6 billion. As I've said, the IRC will work with us to get that number down, but assuming if it was 1.6, that would leave 1.1 from the amount that had been allocated to the Gabba that can deliver these upgrades at the Gabba and Suncorp. Well, reviewers make recommendations, but it's up to governments to make decisions. And I sought advice to ensure that we had options in making those decisions. And we have decided today not to build that $3.4 billion new stadium, but to instead remain within the funding envelope that we committed to. Sure. The review considered a wide range of matters, and as I've said, we've accepted 27 of their 30 recommendations. They considered 2 options for athletics and opening ceremonies and landed on one which is more expensive. Now, the reason I called for that review the day I was made the Premier was to see if we could find better value outcomes. I certainly did not expect to get a recommendation that was nearly $1 billion more and meant starting from scratch on planning. Now, when I understood that that was the direction they were heading in, I indicated to my department that I would need to take to Cabinet an alternative option that did deliver value for money and did remain within the envelope. And it's that option that was put forward by John Coates from the IOC. It's that option that we've chosen to proceed with because it conforms with the new norms under which we told Queenslanders we were bidding for the Olympic and Paralympic Games.
The athletes village, Trevor, is that part of that continuing to be a
The location of the 3 athletes' villages was not a matter considered in the review, and so that will continue to be the main village at Hamilton, with a second village on the Gold Coast and a satellite village on the Sunshine Coast.
How soon prior to the games do you see these infrastructure upgrades coming down?
We've always said we want to see them delivered as soon as possible so that we can be using them as soon as possible. Choosing to do these smaller upgrades across multiple stadiums gives a lot more flexibility on how we deliver them, how we stage them, when we deliver them over that period of time. The good news, of course, is that the review rubber stamped most of the community sporting venues, the smaller venues, and that means we can get on with the job of delivering those so that kids can be playing sport in those venues at the weekends well in advance of 2032. I haven't yet, but I have written to him and offered him a full and detailed briefing on both the panel outcomes and the decisions that we have taken. Of course, I would welcome bipartisan support. I think taking the politics out of this, taking the tension out of this, was always one of my intentions.
What about John Coates? Have you spoken to him today?
Sorry?
About John Coates, have you spoken to him and told him of the decision? Have you agreed with what he's said?
John is currently in transit, I understand, but I did speak to him late last week, and I understand he has included, there are quotes from him included in our press release.
What is the sentiment of review on the ground? What sort of Queensland's next to
Of course it varies. Varies where in the state you are, who you're talking to, and how much they're struggling. And I understand that. I believe that we can deliver a fantastic Olympic and Paralympic Games while also focusing on the priorities of Queenslanders right now. That's the message I've heard from them, and that's what we are working to do.
You just said that Queenslanders can't stop expending money on the stadium. In November, though, you said Gabba was the best option. Why couldn't Queensland select it now when they could in November?
Well, they couldn't in November, Hayden. That's what I've said. Since then, I heard from Queenslanders that they did not support that plan. Since then, I asked for this review to find a better plan. Since then, the review recommended a more expensive option, and that's why I'm rejecting it.
Do you think the government overall has done a good job at organising the Olympics so far?
We're working hard with what we have and the limitations that are upon us. I said when I called for this review that there were no easy alternatives. Every option has pros and cons. But what we have heard from Queenslanders is that they want us to stay within that funding envelope. We don't believe they want to see billions more on a new stadium. Sure.
Oh, look, I think that once we got an indication of where they were heading and the recommendations of a completely new type of thing, I think it was the intention to try to do that, and we have 90% of the recommendations have been accepted, 27 of the 30. The ones that we aren't accepting are that the QSAC doesn't proceed. Obviously, we are proceeding with the QSAC, and that we're not going to build a brand new stadium at Victoria Park. The majority of them have all been agreed to. Oh, look, I think that's an irrelevant question,
That
really.
indication and who gave it to you?
I beg your pardon?
When did you get that indication of where they were going and who gave it to you?
Well, obviously we've been speaking with Graham Quirk and the team,
So you told them?
and yes, and the
When was it?
yeah, and there's been a lot of recommendations, but there's been 900 submissions. There's been a number of ideas that have come forward in all parts, and like, for example, I think they would have preferred the arena to have been over the rail track, but obviously costs are prohibitive in doing that. The time is prohibitive. They looked at other venues. They've now decided on the Roma Street, the upper part of Roma Street Parkland, and we'll get a brand new, arena live here in Brisbane, which is great.
They were going to have a new
Oh, look, the exact time I don't know, but we've been speaking, of course, and they have indicated that they were looking at different venues, and the panel have been very straightforward in their thinking and where they were going. And we've been very grateful of that. Look, I'm not going to divulge our personal discussions with Graham at all levels, but we did obviously take into account what the team was saying. But we've decided on this in that we don't think that a new stadium at Victoria Park is the way to go forward. Yes, we'll obviously do the due diligence. We'll have a look at everything. We'll do our investigations. We'll make sure that's still a lot of money that needs to be spent. We'll work with the IOC. We'll work with all our stakeholders. We'll work with the AFL, Cricket Australia, and all stakeholders to ensure that we provide what we need to provide.
Brisbane Live, what's happening with that? Is it still Roma Street, or is it?
Yes, definitely. The recommendations in the review, it's picked up.
So Graham Quirk says that's going to cost around $4 billion.
No, that's not the recommendation. That was over the rail line. It's a different location now, and the funding is the envelope that was there before. That is going to move. We're accepting the recommendation in the report for the arena Brisbane Live, yes. Not at this stage. I don't think that means that we're going to be doing stadium. It means the type of things that they were talking about in there, that if we were to spend money, what we needed to do to bring some of the parts of it up to code.
Is that the Brisbane City Council arena it's moving to?
I beg your pardon?
The arena, is that moving to Brisbane City Council?
Yeah, where that depot is, it's actually parkland belongs to the state. The council has a depot, a car park, and it's at top end of the Roma Street Parklands. We haven't spoken to them yet. The government owns the land. We now have to proceed with all our due diligence in relation to this. That is the funding envelope that they said for the arena, and that is the amount that we'll be advancing with. I'll be introducing an independent delivery authority in the mid-year, and they will be required to deliver the venues under the funding envelope. We will speak to the Lions and Cricket. They're aware of this. I believe the Premier's had discussions with them, and we'll be speaking with them as well. And yes, and we will be obviously progressing what they require in due course as well. I look forward, and I've been speaking to them whole time.
Minister, Toowoomba seems to be the big loser regionally here today. Are they going to have anything to do with the Olympics?
Well, there might be some sports that we could play there, but I think they received the third largest number of submissions with around 94%, I think it's in the last page of the review document, against the proposal for Toowoomba. We accept the recommendations of the review panel and it won't be proceeding, but there may be the ability for other sports. Once we land on exactly what the 28 sports are for the Olympic and the 22 sports for the Paralympic Games.
They're keen on equestrian. Is that a possibility?
Look, at this stage, it's not on the agenda, but we will be exploring. We can't answer every single question in relation to this. We've got the review report. We need to do our due diligence.
Is there still an Olympics for all of Queensland?
Of course, absolutely. And if you look at the venues, most of them are, a lot of them are outside of the SEQ. Cairns, for example, Sunshine Coast will be proceeding with all of those venues, exactly what the review has got.
Can you understand the frustrations, Minister, that after 2 years of winning the games, Queensland has got very little to show for it?
Look, I think we've got a path forward. We're going to get on with the job. We're not looking backwards. We're looking forward. We've made a decision and we're going to deliver the best games for 2032. Well, we analysed this and we took all of those recommendations into account, and the Cabinet has decided today this is the way forward and we're going to get on with the job.
Has been embarrassing internationally post-Russia.
There's no embarrassment internationally. We will deliver the best games and they will be absolutely fantastic. No, that was not the decision. The Cabinet submission was made and we decided that at Cabinet today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.